Good afternoon. You want to, oh, okay, excellent. I'm back to sharing. Thank you. Let me get the, whoops. Dan, thank you for making it. Hopefully you use some resiliency skills to figure out how to join us. I'll have you jump in as I give you some entry points where I think it'd be great for you to comment. Okay, good. Anyways, I went through, okay, people saw this. Dan, before we all got cut off and you rejoined, I was just mentioning how we're all hopeful that we'll be seeing the other side of this quite soon. Okay. So these were the big questions I raised last time I was with you all on a webinar on this topic. After I defined resiliency, which it is a very complex term really, and a construct, but here's perhaps a pithy way to think about it, a very practical way: ability to bounce back from hardship or trauma. So the key, of course, is bouncing back after you've been facing something quite negative. And then another important word there is ability. So how do people do this? How do they do it effectively? How can they muster up that ability when the hardship is quite severe? And to what extent can you be taught or have a community that supports these abilities? Are they innate? Are they taught? Is it a combination? And how much somebody's family, somebody's local community, or the larger community can help strengthen people's abilities? All part of what researchers have looked at and discuss and try to resolve and find answers to. Downstream a little bit, I'll show you some elaborations of that theme, where it comes from, how people can strengthen it, how communities can support it. Here are 4 big questions that were discussed and brought to bear in my last time around, and I thought I would bring them up in the hopes that with Dan's help, as well as you all that can provide some comments, see how we can add some insights to these important questions. In what ways can a person become more resilient? In what ways does a community support resilience? So it isn't just about individuals. In many ways, it's about the larger environment, whether it's the micro or the macro environment. How can a person support another individual's resilience? So how can you be a resilient advocate, if you will? And then germane to current times, how is COVID-19 challenging our resilience? And are there a sub part of that I should have put, how are certain, or are there certain resilient traits that are particularly effective in dealing with the current COVID-19 challenge? Or do we even have to perhaps add some more to the standard list of resiliency traits and abilities, because COVID-19 is just providing so many unique challenges. It's not a news bulletin to say it's the pandemic like this comes around very rarely. I guess that's good news, but it also means some ways we don't have a recent history to use as a lifeline or a bridge to dealing with the current challenge. Okay, then this was the main, I thought, slide from last time. I call it the secret sauce of resilience. So I did some digging. I read a great article by Southwick and Charney, 2019. If anyone wants a copy of that article, send me an email. I'll make sure to give out my email. I can send you the PDF of it. They summarized the broad literature of what looks like from a scientific standpoint are the keys to resiliency. But there are a few other sources I looked at, in part because Southwick and Charney had pointed readers to other sources. So this is my list. I hope it reflects what I've read and what the research points and informs us. But it's not in any particular order. It's not from the most important to the least important. I think the experts talk about some of these on the list as being really important, perhaps super sauce. But in general, the concept is the more of these type of, I'll call it traits or features in your environment that you have, probably the more resilient you are. So it's in some ways it's a cumulative model as opposed to specific high profile trait model. But if we have time, we can get into what I thought many of the experts were saying about some of these 13 that might even be, the most important. At least there's some discussion by experts about that. Now, there's a couple other features to this list I wanted to highlight. One of them, if you read through it, you'll see, well, some of them are very specific to individuals, so-called traits or characteristics that you want to try to have and use. But some of them are about your environment and the importance of having people around you or an environment that supports the ability to deal with hardship and trauma. And in fact, there's even an intersection of those two concepts where, look at number 10, altruism, being unselfish. Well, in some ways, that is the idea that that's a trait a person has that helps him or her to be resilient. But by being altruistic, you're also helping others, helping your community. And so they're an interesting interaction of that. One could make a case that the more resilience is built up in a person, in a family, in a microenvironment, the stronger the macro environment, the larger community will exhibit a collective resilience. The other thing on the list is some of them are very teachable, I would think. And some of them, though, might be more wrapped up into a person's biology and to some degree might be a little tougher to teach. So the experts do talk about, well, maybe there are some people very strong with resilience because they have innate characteristics that give them sort of an ease to be resilient. And some people might be more vulnerable or have weaker innate biologically based characteristics, and that could make it tougher for learning. But even if someone had, for example, number 13, very maladaptive neurobiology, let's just say your sympathetic nervous system, the system in your body that deals with stress, reacts to stress, and in hopes that you can cope with it. You might have a weak system that overreacts to stress and makes it difficult to be resilient or come up with coping strategies or to learn to relax, et cetera, et cetera. But that doesn't mean you can't still teach your stress system to react better. But some people might need more teaching, or maybe they'll never get the full mastery that another person who just by luck has a biology that is able to handle difficulties and challenges a little easier. I'm going to stop there, and see if Daniel wants to weigh in with any thoughts or comments on the list.
Hi, Ken. Thank you.
Hi.
I just wanted to add an element within our communities. We tend to think circle more than linear, and within the circle, what matters to us, the Hochokawakan, the circle of life, what matters to us is that we have these traits exhibited. And I like to use the analogy of the flight feather on the eagle. Is the flight feather, each hair has Velcro like edges on it and allows it to cling to the hair next to it. And when all the hairs cling together, flight is possible. The downy feathers all provide warmth, but they don't provide flight. They don't stick together. And I think that's the biggest difference I find between dominant society and our American Indian societies. For us, this isn't as aspirational as it might be in dominant society, as we live and think in terms of we and not in terms of me. So thank you very much for your presentation, and for all of you that come from more traditional backgrounds or reservation settings and stuff. It matters that as a community, we carry these characteristics, and even our idea of family, Tiwahi, which in the dominant society is thought of as the nuclear family. For us, our nuclear family is bigger. And I know we confuse outside people when we say my dad, my mom, my cousin, my grandma, my grandpa, because that includes what in the dominant society, brothers and sisters are cousins. And moms and dads are also uncles and aunts, and grandpas and grandmas are also great uncles and great aunts. And so that gets confusing because they think that we're exaggerating, but we're not. And I would say that gravity, for example, I've never had anybody that believed they were free of gravity. I've met Robert Kennedy, John F. Kennedy. I've met Napoleon. I've met Jesus Christ several times. Unfortunately, all of these were delusional disorders, and they were convinced that they were these people. But I never met anybody who believed they were free of gravity. Gravity is just kind of a given. And our connection to each other, which in English made me, in Lakota, we talk about the energy of life itself, through which we're related to all the material world. And the material world is really just energy. When someone says, "What's the matter?" and you say nothing, you're pretty much telling the truth, because matter is a lot of space between protons, neutrons, and electrons. And so most of matter is nothing, and yet we know that it's something, it's material. And the gravity of our souls, of our chante, is our love for each other, our connection to each other. And so even among the Lakota, you will hear when I greet you, I'll say, "How mataki Pete Dan Foster Imachapelo. Nahayu chante washtea napi chuakielo." I greeted you as physical relatives. But if I end a prayer, I will always say, "How mataku yasin," which means everything is related. Thank you.
So, Daniel, I'm going to put you on the spot with a question. Your excellent summary reminded me of something that I have read a little bit about, but here's the question. What's the opposite of resilience? Is it just the opposite of all of these things on the list, or is it something deeper?
Our belief is a lot of the dominant society view is linear, and even the concept of health would have to do with the absence of disease. From our perspective, you can be healthy even while diseased. In other words, the concept of health has to do with balance. Yeah. And so the concept of resilience has to do with balance. And I think in the scientific world, we'd call that homeostasis. If each one of you lined up and I came by and pushed each of you and kept pushing you, besides one of you young ones hitting me and smacking me and asking me what's wrong with me, you'd keep regaining your balance. It's within our nature to regain our balance. Homeostasis is normal. So our perspective is a balanced perspective and not so much a resilience. So we believe that the negative is just as important as the positive. And so our perspective would say that it's your belief that's causing you to be off balance. It's not the facts. It's
Yeah.
the belief about the facts. And so we embrace both the negative and the positive as vectors that are essential to our life. And suffering is an inevitable part of our life, kind of like some of the acceptance and commitment theorists and so forth now. From our view, every moment comes with two blessings, the blessing it gives us or the blessing we give it. Well, how would COVID be a blessing? And I don't know unless I'm able to bless and support you, Ken, and receive your support back. That reciprocity and that altruism could be that dahuakaskaskan, that invisible force that allows me to continue being connected to this life, just like gravity connects us to Unchimaka, Mother Earth. I hope that answers and is responsive to your question.
Does that mean that you need to experience the negative to help learn the positive?
There can be no positive without the negative.
Yeah, there you
Our
go.
belief is that all of life is, we're spiritual beings that come to experience the limitations of physicality. And so we're part of all that's connected spiritually. In this physicality, we don't realize, we don't remember that we're connected spiritually. We forget it. And there's no such thing as eternity without death, without mortality. There's no such thing as wisdom without ignorance. There's no such thing as joy without sorrow, wellness without sickness. And so, good point. It's the negative is as important to be embraced as the positive, but it's when they're out of balance that
Right.
we need to seek to restore balance to the extent that we're able to. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Again, your points remind me of another layer of all this. It has to do with how parents and elders and community leaders can teach others these principles. Quick sidebar example. I showed this list to one of our young adult daughters, and I wondered how much she thought she learned or had just some insights about these various factors, either by from what she might have learned from my wife and I, what she might have learned from friends in school. And it struck me that she thought it was a very reasonable list, but there really wasn't much base knowledge or understanding or insight about many of these features. And it struck me that it might be something we miss in formal education, and maybe we don't do enough of it in informal education of young people. Maybe prior generations did more of it, but maybe the social media high-tech phenomenon of current times makes it perhaps less of a priority. Wondered if any in the group, or Dan could, of course, still weigh in, had any thoughts about that, the whole issue of teaching young people these skills and allowing them to have experiences that help master the skills. I'm struck by another anecdote. Discussion among my wife and in-laws, and how much you protect your children when they make a mistake or are faced with a challenge, and try to soothe their anxiety or angst as opposed to having them experience it and using it as a teaching moment. Oh, excellent. Jim, can you see Ellen? Jim's looks like he's got a comment, or
Hi. Hi, everybody.
Excellent.
My comment, my friend Jonna James from the Chickasaw Nation in Oklahoma. She's a tribal liaison for the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse. She does a great training called Stay Unconquerable. And there's actually like 3 CEUs available for anybody. But anyway, the basis of it is moving away from, I know we need to be educated and we need to know about historical trauma in order to address it, but moving away from that towards historical resilience. That we, if we carry that trauma within our genetic memory, we also carry that resilience. And I gave a little talk last week about, historical examples from my own people and how we carry that and what has gotten us through these times of, pandemic and war and what have you, have been our culture, our ceremony, and that we have these coping skills readily available. Now, if we have, say, youth that are, and many of us live off reservation, urban areas and what have you, but work with maybe like, I live in the Portland area, we have NARA, and we have the Portland Indian Urban Health Board, and then there's the Seattle Indian Urban Health Board north of here. Work with agencies like that to develop mentoring and tutoring, even if it's only virtual during this time, maybe get elders involved. I know a lot of elders who right now would welcome a chance to feel like they are valued and have a purpose. And the best way to do that is ask them to teach, and ask cultural people if they would teach. There are some things that can't be taught in this forum because they're just too sacred, but there are other more general practices and principles and historical examples, or even for the youth, stuff like making drums, making moccasins. I just came from Oklahoma where I worked with a tribe, and they were part of the, oh man, my memory's getting bad. I can't remember, it was under a grant from SAMHSA, but part of what they were doing was they ordered material to make moccasins, and they sent out polls to see if there was interest for the local youth, and if whoever was interested, they would make sure and get the materials to them, and then they would have native connections. That's right. And anyway, they would have virtual moccasin making type stuff. So, but there's a great value, I'm also involved in a recovery community, and people with long-term recovery sometimes kind of feel like they lose their purpose because nobody asks them to share what they know. So,
right. It's
taking
advantage of people's experiences and passing that on.
Right. So, but that was kind of my spin on it there.
Well, your discussion tapped so many on the list, and one of them was having good role models and knowing a community has them and taking advantage of that and seeking their willingness to contribute. So yes. More have raised their hand. Ellen, do you know how to?
Thank you, Jim. And Rafaela, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Well, this is a great topic for everybody during this time. So while sorry, I don't remember your name. doctor, but I know Dan. So both of you share a great list of the secret sauce for resilience. There is one, in these days, talking about resilience was, I trying to explain it to colleagues or friends. And one thing came to my mind, that is the ability to find a solution that we never thought before to a challenge. So if we wanted to go, for example, the challenge is how we can communicate. In my field is how can we have session with clients during a pandemic, or could be how we can, as a school, for example, how we can deliver a curriculum in the middle of a pandemic. So this is an example of challenge in a family or an individual level within a family. The challenge is how we can continue to have fun, to do the thing that we need to do, to rest, eat well, socialize during a pandemic. So these are the challenges, that can be about what Dan was talking about. These are the hardship. This could be the difficulty. That could be the bad between, quoting thing. The positive is being able to do all those things in a different way. And so to me, what came all in a sudden as intuition is that is also the creativity, the creative solution. Sorry, I have an accent. The creative solution to get what you wanted to accomplish, no matter the difficulties. The one thing that I found very difficult, and I'm talking about because there is a resilience to an individual level, to me as a person, there is a family resilience. So what this family can do to overcome working through the challenges. And then there is a system, could be the school system, could be the job system. And then there is the community. And I don't go farther. Let's stay within this. So when I'm trying my best as individual to use more creative ways to work through the challenges within my family, I also have to deal with the difficulty and the struggles of, for example, the school that is not able to be resilient, or as a community that is not able to be resilient. And so even a person to individual level is trying the best. Sometimes if you don't have other people around you that can do that, for example, I have to do with the school. This is a big, first of all, I work on the Rosebud Reservation and my son goes to school there. And that is a big, I realize that undermines me a lot at the individual level and family level, what the school is not able to offer. And so it's a very complicated. I wish that I could be as an individual, being able to do my best to be resilient during this time. But I wanted to bring that up there because no matter what we do, sometimes we can be overwhelmed by the difficulty and the struggle of broader circles to deal and be resilient during this time. That's all.
Ken, this is Dan again. Thank you, Rafi. And I wanted to add, because I implicitly spoke of it, but I didn't explicitly speak of it. And that is, from our view, for example, if I come into this life with profound retardation and with all kinds of challenges, every one of us comes into this life with a medicine. All. In the dominant society, we have weeds. A lot of what the dominant society calls weeds are plants that are inconvenient. Our belief is that everything comes with medicine, negative or positive. Collectively, we're all a part of Tunkashla Wakantaka. Collectively, we're all a part of creation. We're all a part of the past, the present, the future, what has been, what is, what could be, what will be. There is that component of destiny that is a thread that we weave, and destiny of all the creation, the two-leggeds have the most capacity to modify the destiny of others. But of all of creation, for example, I hear people talking about humans fixing the earth. If humans just leave the earth alone, the earth will restore itself. It does not need humans. In a way, we're just opposite of dominant society. We don't believe that we were created first. In fact, we have stories of creation in Wolakota that has to do with Eon, the stone nation, the rock nation. And it gave of itself, so all the other forms and aspects of life could be formed. And it had to give of itself, so kind of the Big Bang theory. We already had that theory, that creation story. Why do I bring that up? Because it's not up to me to fix everything. It's up to me to stay in touch with Creator. Of all the creation, only the two-legged doesn't know its instructions. All of the rest of creation was created ahead of us. We're the most recent arrivals here. We're dependent on all the life that came before us in order to exist. So we're not the superior being, and quite the opposite. The earth, of all of its creation, it could probably live best without us. We have damaged everything. We have soiled our nest. Earth will restore fine with or without us. Earth does not need us. We are Earth. We are living, breathing, thinking, moving Earth, but we're only a part of it, and we're only here temporarily, what we spoke of earlier. And so that spiritual component is very important. And so of all the creation, we're the ones that need to seek our instructions on an ongoing basis. As I speak to you, I can think 10 to 12 times as fast as I'm speaking. I can have a thread of thought to Creator, asking for instructions and pledging to do my best for the Oyate. The Oyate is more than just the nation of people. It's all of life itself, and to be one who serves life. Well, thank you for allowing me to add those additional.
Daniel brings up some fascinating existential issues. And it is related to resilience, because in some ways, he's reminding everybody that you don't want to be so self-centered or so narcissistic with your own self or with us as humans on Earth, that we take an over-dominant view and lose perspective and lose context. We are really guests in some ways of the planet Earth, and if you lose track of that, that's, as Daniel is saying, that can lead to a lot of problems. In some ways, it's making sure you reframe your existence within the larger context, the larger spiritual context. Ella, I don't know, was there another hand up?
Rafaela, did you want to say anything else? I noticed you put your hand up and then put it back down, so I didn't know if you had any other comments.
No, I appreciate that a lot of this presentation, and no, I don't have anything else to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yep. A question for the group, and maybe Daniel wants to weigh in, and that is thinking about what challenges people face during COVID-19. And we got some more challenges still going forward, but perhaps we've learned a lot individually or our communities. What do you see going forward in how you might even view resilience different, or use certain skills of resilience that you learned, that you had, maybe were surprised about, and that you realize I'm going to be able to take that going forward. And maybe it's both the negative and the positive side of the resilience spectrum.
COVID has hit us so hard, and I'm in my 7th decade of life, and this is absolutely the saddest year of my life. I've said goodbye to the normal amount of people, family and friends and relatives and community members that we would always say goodbye to in the year, and said hello to young ones, but not in our way. Our way, a lot of our way, living in teepee life and living, there's 11 under my roof right now. So I keep teasing my wife. We're not supposed to raise a village. It's a village raises a child. But in our Indian community, it's not unusual for us to have several generations of our family living under one roof, which was part of what frightens us, is because it will spread so quickly, and it has spread so quickly. And we've lost a lot of our culture bearers. We've lost a lot of our sober people that were supposed to stay alive by virtue of their lifestyle. In a meritocracy, they certainly earned the right to survive. But COVID, natural law could care less who you or I am. Natural law, if I jump off a cliff and I don't have wings and feathers, I'm probably going to land at the bottom of the cliff. So it doesn't take, even if I think I can fly, gravity is still more powerful than spiritual aspiration. And so I best not jump off a cliff unless I have wings and know how to use them. Natural law is what it is. And for us, I suppose what we'd call science really is natural law. And if I want a different outcome, even if my belief is great and my faith is wonderful, if I don't understand, Albert Whitehead used to tell us, the great mystery really is a misnomer. It's not a good translation of Tunkashla Wakantanka, because while it might seem mysterious, all you have to do is spend time with it. For example, the Western world has a concept of wilderness. What the Western world called wilderness is our home. Four-legged, winged ones, standing ones, crawling ones, buzzing ones, singing ones, all other forms of flora and fauna are our relatives. We lived among them. A bear has bear nature. Is that wild nature? I don't know. Humans have human nature. Fleas have flea nature. Chiggers have chigger nature. Are they wild? Not really. Oh, you mean if they don't subject and submit themselves to the two-legged, then they're wild? That's kind of a goofy notion. And so where I'm going with this is we do believe that we are partners with creation itself. And the universe, the earth, Luther Standing Bear said this really well, but so have others. Eastman, Charles Eastman said it well. The universe, what we call the wilderness, I guess, was our university, is our university. One of our most profound ceremonies, the Hambletiapi, we go and sit alone and fast and pray, usually for 4 days and nights, sometimes for longer, sometimes shorter. And we sit there and do nothing except hold our pipe and pray and stay awake to the extent that we're able to while we protect the Chinupa. That was always my most difficult ceremony because I didn't like my own company that well when I was younger. I loved the company of others. I loved the distraction of both giving and receiving attention. But much of our culture is nonverbal. So much of our culture has to do with oblique, sideways kind of support, which includes touch. How do we touch each other during this pandemic when we cannot touch each other physically? I'm so lonely for some of my children and grandchildren on the Rosebud, for example, right now. I long for them and reach out to them in what ways I know how to. And how do I bury? We do a 4-day ceremony when people leave us. And over those 4 days, we go through their infancy, their youth, their adulthood, and their old age, even if they don't live that long. And we review the life of the one that left us. And our children accompany us to these wakes. And they learn about sadness and they learn about loss. But as many have toned in, is we're teaching them, we're passing culture on by modeling. And we use song and we use ceremony and we use smudge. We incorporate multiple aspects. We don't just depend on mind. There's a holistic view. You mentioned the existential view, but for us, it's not a vapid existentialism. It's a connected existentialism, just as gravity connects us to the earth, our love for one another, our love for our way of life, our language, our ancestors, our descendants. That connects us. to find a path that Rafi talked about, a meaningful path that can provide safety, because what is love if it's not safety emotionally, physically, spiritually, sexually, economically, politically, all these different ways. Okay, well, thank you for listening. Thank you, Ken, for asking.
So one of the things that impressed me about the last 5 minutes and Raphael's contribution to all of it is how things are getting reframed and put under a special focus because of COVID-19, but the reframing is of value for everyday life, and hopefully was of value before COVID and will be of value later. So many things, themes Daniel raised, not only helps you, I think, give peace to one's life, but also can be a way to reframe adversity so that it doesn't stifle a person and doesn't prevent you from still maintaining that, I'll call it the holistic perspective of yourself with nature. And in many ways, that is reframing or having a cognitive perspective, a thinking perspective. It strikes me that, and it's kind of one of my takeaways from today, is that is so important, and something we perhaps are putting under a microscope more so now because of COVID-19, but it's not a temporary lesson learned. It looks like, it strikes me that's an important lesson to carry on. Hopefully all of you are thinking of, yes, but I did that before COVID-19, reframing, keeping a holistic perspective, and hopefully you perhaps even seen how it was helpful during the last few months and how you can use it going forward. I wanted to give anyone another chance to weigh in. We're nearing the end. And this includes Daniel, if you had any closing thoughts.
Well, I apologize for not opening. We're having winds up to 120 miles an hour out here. And so part of my sweat is up in a high tree right now. And I don't know where our trampoline is. And one of our doghouse roofs, we're not sure where it's at. And our dumpsters have moved down a bluff. So I wasn't able to get on. We didn't have connection. But I want to really say thank you, Ken, and thank you all who are listening. And you're right that hope is something for us. Discouragement is necessary for hope to have meaning. Aggression is necessary for gentility to have meaning. Rudeness and some of the political climate we're seeing right now is necessary for wa'unshila, for compassion to have meaning. And we cannot have one without the other. And so the aspirational values that we keep allow us to rise above those things that would kill us. And we cannot rise above them individually, is our belief. We can only do it as a people, collectively. So even if I pass, you can remember me in a way that will live on to my children and my grandchildren and my nieces and my nephews and their children and grandchildren. And the biggest thing would be to pay it forward for them to take some of the qualities that I aspired to and make those their qualities in their lifetime. And that way we can keep the circle of Wolakota, of our culture, alive. We weren't linear in our aspiration. We were circular. We aren't linear in our aspiration. We're circular. And so I would like to close with a song, if that's okay with people. So tell me when, Ken, and I'll close with the song.
Ella, I think it's good timing now, unless you had any other thoughts to close us out, Ella.
I just want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and hope you're staying safe and healthy, and wishing you all well in the coming years. So go ahead, Dr. Foster.
Thank you, Ella. Honey, you want to sing? You want to sing a song? You awake? I'm going to sing a Thanksgiving song for life itself and for these opportunities that we have to love and be loved. Grief is part of love, and to the extent we love someone, that's how much we're going to grieve. And it's so important to have the community during times of grief. Wakataka tonka shela, wakataka tonka shela, pila maya yelo he, pila maya yelo he. We chose a niwa maya kuelo, pila maya ye. Pila maya yeloe. Chanupa wakancha maya kuelohe. Pila maya yelohe. We chose a niwa maya kuelo. Pila maya ye. Pila maya Elohe. Almatakuyas. Thank you, everyone. Bless you.
Thank you, Daniel and family. Thank you also, Ella.
Thank you both so much for joining us. Stay warm, Dr. Foster. Hope you guys are safe and okay in the storm. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh.